Hola, Algebra 2. This is going to be the multilingual video. Just kidding. Alright, so we have, this problem says, Mrs. Olson waited patiently at the top of Central High School, 50 feet off the ground, to launch a water balloon at Mr. Pleasance, to launch a water balloon at Mr. Pleasance as he walked into the building. She threw it at him with all her might, an initial velocity of 14 feet per second. The height of the balloon in feet can be modeled by using the function h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 14t plus 50, where t is time in seconds. Alright, so one thing that you have to know here is that all these numbers here, the negative 16t squared, that's just gravity. 14t, that comes from the speed that she threw it. And also that 50 just comes from the 50 feet off the ground here. A lot of times on tests, they'll do that to you, where they give you all that information, but then put it into the formula for you. It's kind of confusing, but that's what it does sometimes. So now the first question is asking us, what is the maximum height that the balloon will reach before coming back down right towards Mr. Pleasance's head, and how long until it reaches that height? So we're looking for two things. We're looking for the time, and we're looking for the height. So we have to identify in the information we're given what is time and what is the height. Well, t is time. It says it right here. T is time in seconds. So that means these t's here, those represent time. Those are typically x's, so we'll say that the time is the most equivalent to an x. And then the height here, h of t. Now, first, don't think of h parentheses t in this case. It doesn't mean h times t. That means height as a function of time, meaning the height will change as time goes on, which would make sense because gravity is going to act on it and it's going to move because time is passing. Alright, so what's the maximum height? That's the same as finding the vertex. Well, so what do we have to do to find the vertex? So let's don't forget our height is y. What is the way to find the vertex? Well, you can find the axis of symmetry, which will always go right through the vertex, and then you can plug that in to find the y value of the vertex. So, this is a formula you're going to have to remember. It's the front half of the quadratic formula. So it's just x equals negative b, and skip all the plus or minus, and then all over to a. Alright, so let's plug that in. B is 14, so we say negative 14 over 2 times a is negative 16, so negative 16. If we plug that in your calculator, now one thing I want you guys to be careful of when you're plugging these into your calculator, you have to do 2 times negative 16 first, which gives you negative 32. So what we should have here is negative 14 over negative 32, which will give us an x value, because remember it says x equals of 0.4375. So hey, this actually gives us half of the answer, because it asks us how long does it take to get to the height, the maximum height. Well, it takes 0.4375 seconds to reach the maximum height. So we can kind of put that on there and just circle it, because we know, or box it up, so we know that's already part of the answer. The other thing it asks us, though, is then what is the height? We figured out that height is y, so all we have to do is just plug in the x, which is t. So we can put in negative 16 times 0.4375 squared plus 14 times 0.4375. Ran out of room here, but it's plus 50. Alright, so what do we get when we do that? Be careful when you're plugging this into your calculator. It needs to look just like how I wrote it here. Otherwise, you need to make sure that you're following order of operations yourself. You have to do this squared first, because exponents come first. Then multiply the answer to that times the 16. Also multiply this out. Then you'll add what you get from all of this, plus what you get from all of this, plus 50. Alright, so let's get rid of some of these lines here. And what you get is 53.0625, but let's just round that to 53.2. 0.06. And we see that all of the heights are measured in feet. There's feet right there, feet per second. And we know that this is the gravity that has to do with feet per second squared. So we know that this is going to be, the maximum height is 53.06 feet. All right, now some people were confused. They said, well, why is it going to go up? Now, you may think of yourself, you would probably drop the water balloon. But it says right here that they're launching the water balloon, and she threw it at him. And that this is the formula. And in the formula, if you graphed it, you'd see that it goes up just a little before it starts cutting back down. You see it only goes up about 3 feet. All right, and that's the answer to this first problem. Don't be too intimidated by word problems on this test. Just try to think about what part of the graph am I trying to find.